welcome back to the channel. Today we are checking out the ToolKitRC's M7AC. It is a multifunctional 300 watt DC, 100 watt AC, 15 amp 1 to 6S smart battery charger. It has voice prompt, customizable voice alerts, and a customizable welcome screen. On the top we have the 2.4 inch IPS wide angle color display screen. We have the metal push to enter scroll wheel and the exit button. In the rear we have the 100 to 240 volt AC input port, the small but satisfying on and off switch for the AC power. We have the cooling fan, which will turn on at half speed when the internal temperature hits 45 degrees Celsius, and when the internal temperature hits 53 degrees Celsius, it'll go into full speed mode to enhance heat dissipation. And we have the 7 to 28 volt DC XT60 input port. In the front we have the 5 volt 2.1 amp USB port, and we have the input and output 3-pin servo port for testing PPM, PWM, and S-Bus receivers, and also to check ESCs. Just remove the little cover with a needle or some kind of a tool to expose the pins. Next we have the 2 to 6S balance port and the XT60 or XT30 selectable output ports. We have the logo on this side, and we have the speaker grill and the spring-loaded micro SD card slot on the other side. The micro SD card was not supplied this time, so you will have to supply your own micro SD card. A 128 megabyte to 16 gigabyte micro SD card is supported. Now I'm using a 32 gigabyte micro SD card and it still supports it. Download the SD card contents, which are the logo folder with the startup bitmap file and the sounds folder with 10 or so language packs from the ToolKitRC M7AC product website. You can customize the startup logo as well as any of the voice prompts, just like the ToolKitRC's M9 smart charger.
Welcome to ToolKitRC.
On the bottom are a couple of rubber pads and also a flip out stand, and there are ventilation grills on the bottom as well, so flip out that stand for maximum ventilation. Now the plastic casing here feels really edgy and tough, and it is slightly raised above the display screen, so it is nicely protecting the display screen if you happen to put it upside down. Now the functions and the features are identical to the ToolKitRC's M9 charger. The main difference is the tiltable screen that is on the M9 charger, and the M9 charger is only DC powered. But the M7AC here is dual AC and DC powered. The power output is 300 watts up to 15 amps for this M7AC charger, and 600 watts 20 amps on the M9 charger. Link to the M9 charger review down in the video description if you want to check that one out. So to charge up a battery on the M7AC charger, simply power up the device via either the AC input port or the XT60 input port. Now make sure to toggle the power switch to the on position when powered via the AC input port.
Welcome to ToolKitRC. Welcome to ToolKitRC.
If you want to check the battery voltage status, connect the battery to the output port via either the XT60 or the XT30 ports. You don't need an input power source to do this, so let's plug it in. And there's the voice prompt. And if you want to check the individual cells, connect the balance connector to the balance input port. Now it's a little short, so what I'm going to do is facilitate it with the extender. Now this is a 6S balance extender, and this is a 4S battery. So connect the battery balance connector to the rightmost part of the extender where all the wires are black, and make sure that the left side has the red wire. If you have a 6S battery, you don't have to worry, but if you're using battery less than 6S, then all the way to the right. And now, as you can see, we have the individual battery cells as well. Now, to check the resistance, you will need an input power source. Simply plug it in. I'm going to use the AC power source. And now we see that there's an input voltage appearing on the top left corner. Long press the exit button.
Measure resistance.
There you go, measure resistance. Just go ahead and enter. And it will start measuring resistance. And you can go
Measure
to...
resistance complete.
And there you go. The voice prompt tell you when the measuring is complete. So the scroll wheel will go to the standby mode, the voltage of individual cell mode, and also the resistance mode. So to charge up the battery, press down on the scroll wheel.
Battery type.
Here you can choose the battery type. We have Lipo, we have high voltage Lipo, lithium iron, lithium ion, lithium titanate, nickel metal hydride, lead acid, and UAV bat.
UAV bat.
Now the UAV bat setting is a preset mode to charge up DJI batteries.
Drone model.
Next, you can choose the cell count
Cells.
to either auto detect, choose manually 1S, 2S, 3S, 4S, 5S, or 6S. I'm going to set it to auto.
Auto.
You can also
Mode.
choose the mode to charge, discharge, or storage charge or discharge. Set it to charge.
Charge.
And now
And voltage.
you can choose the end voltage from 4.05 volts all the way up to 4.25 volts. This is a Lipo battery, so by default it's 4.2 volts. We'll set it on that.
4.20 volts. Charge current.
Next, you can choose the charge current depending on the charging battery. By rule of thumb, choose 1 amp for every 1000 milliamps. So this is a 1500 milliamp size battery, so I'll set it to 1.5 amps. And it is set to 1.5 amps, but you can choose from 0.1 amp all the way to 15 amps. Scroll wheel is really nice and responsive and very accurate, by the way.
1.5 ampere. Start.
Next, you can go ahead and hit start.
Charge to 16.80 volts.
So it'll prompt you with the end voltage. You can either
Cancel. OK.
or hit OK. Hit OK and the charging will start.
Charging starts. Fast charge completed.
And there you go. That is the alert when the charging of the battery is complete. Okay guys, from here on out I have turned off the voice prompt, so you will no longer hear the voice prompt coming on. So while a battery is charging, you can go ahead and check the individual cell voltage like I showed you before, and also the resistance and the status of the charge. Now on the top left-hand corner is the input voltage. Next up is the power consumption and the internal temperature. Here's the voltage of the battery that is charging and the charge current. Here's the time elapsed and the charged capacity. The fan just kicked in because it reached 45 degrees Celsius. Down press on the scroll wheel and you are able to change the charge current. And to stop the charging process. Now, if you want to discharge a battery, simply choose the discharge mode from the charge interface. So go to the charge interface and change the mode from charge to discharge. Now you can choose whether to internally dissipate the energy or externally dissipate the energy, externally to a power load. I'm going to choose the internally to dissipate the energy. Next, you can choose the end voltage, by default set to 3.2 volts. You can choose from 2.7 volts up to 3.7 volts. Leave it at 3.2 volts. Now you can choose the discharge current from 0.1 amps to 3 amps. Default was 2 amps, so leave it at 2 amps. Now once you hit start, it will either ask you to cancel or hit OK. I'm going to hit OK, and it is starting to discharge. Now the energy is dissipating internally, so the temperature is going to start rising, and once it hits 45, and it did right now, the fan will kick in at half speed. And that is the fan noise at half speed. And now once it reaches 53 degrees Celsius, the fan speed will kick into the higher speed. And remember, the temperature is rising pretty rapidly because we are internally dissipating the heat or the energy. The fan logo is spinning as well, which is pretty cool. So here we go, almost to 53 degrees Celsius. And right at 53 degrees Celsius, it kicked into the higher speed. That is the fan noise at the higher speed. Now, while it is discharging, you can press down on the scroll wheel to adjust the current. Set to 2 amps. You can change it from 0.1 amp to 3 amps. And you can also stop the discharge. Now, if you go into the input settings by long pressing the scroll wheel and select the power type from adapter to battery and go back to the discharge mode, you will now see a recycle feature appearing. So this feature will only appear when the battery option is selected as the power source, and a rechargeable battery needs to be used as a power source for this feature to work. Now in this mode, the discharging energy from the target battery or the discharging battery is recycled to the input battery source, and therefore recycling the discharging energy. Now in this mode, there will be a maximum input voltage. Now you can go ahead and choose from 28 volts all the way down to 7 volts. I'm using a 4-cell battery here, so it is 16.8 volts maximum. So I'll set it to 16.8 volts and hit start. It will ask you cancel or OK once again. I'll hit OK, and it is starting to recycle the energy into the input battery. Now, since it is recycling the energy and not internally dissipating the energy like before, the temperature will pretty much stay constant as well. And you will also notice that the target battery or the discharging battery voltage will decrease and the input battery voltage will start to increase. To put your battery to storage, choose the storage in the charge mode. We were discharging, so putting it into storage charge. Now, it is basically the same as the discharge mode. You can choose from internally dissipating the energy, recycling the energy if a battery option is chosen for the input power source, and externally to a power load. I'll hit recycle. Now the end voltage is from 3.75 volts to 3.95 volts, and 3.85 volts was the default value. So we'll leave it at that. Now here we have a charge current, since now you could be charging it up to put it into storage. Here is the discharge current and the maximum input voltage. Hit start and you can either cancel or hit OK. I'll hit OK, and now it is storage discharging or charging. Down press the scroll wheel to change the current and to stop the storage charge or discharge. So besides charging, discharging, and storage charging or discharging your batteries, the M7AC can measure resistance as shown earlier. Simply long press the exit button to go to the accessibility page. Here you can measure resistance like we did earlier. You can measure signals of PWM, PPM, and S-bus receivers. So here I am measuring the signal of a PWM receiver. But on a PWM receiver, you'll have to measure the signals of each of the channels separately. Like that. And here I have a PPM receiver. And measuring the signals of it. And here I have a S-bus receiver. And you can measure the signals of an S-bus receiver as well. It is very handy to rule out the receiver as the source of your problem. You can also test and change the signal output for PWM. You can change from manual to auto 1, auto 2, and auto 3, where you can change the pulse width and the cycle values. For PPM and S-bus, the pulse width value of each of the individual channels can be changed. You can also test your ESCs. You can also power up or charge up an external device like this here, a power station, for example. Make sure you choose the correct output voltage from 28 volts to 1 volt are your choices. We'll go to 12 volts, 12.4, close enough, and hit start, and voila. It has powered up a power station. but for practicality wise, it is perfect for powering up a soldering iron out in the field. One of my favorite usage for this power feature is to power up a quadcopter with a simple pressing of a button, so your hands are free to down press the bind button. To put the receiver in the binding mode. Now long press the scroll wheel to enter into the settings. Here in the input settings, you can select the power from auto to manual and select the preset power from P1, P2, or P3. You can choose the power type from adapter to battery. Set the maximum power from 10 watts to 350 watts. Set the maximum current from 1 amp to 15 amps. And set the voltage range from 7 to 28 volts. Here in the security settings, you can set the safe internal temperature from maximum of 80 degrees Celsius down to 50 degrees Celsius. Safe external temperature from a maximum of 80 degrees Celsius and 50 degrees Celsius as well. You can set the safety timer. I have mine set to 78 minutes, from 60 minutes to a maximum of 300 minutes and off as well. And the safe capacity from 1 amp to 100 amps and off. In the personalization setting, you can set the backlight brightness from 1, 2, all the way up to 10, which is pretty bright. You can set the operational volume from off, low, medium, high. You can set the announce volume from off, low, medium, and high. That'll be for the voice prompt. You can set the warning volume from off, low, medium, and high. And you can also select your language. You can select the theme style from light to dark. The dark looks pretty nice. Now when the battery selection is set to off, it will take you into the charge mode when the scroll wheel is short pressed. But when it is set to the on position, it will show you the preset choices of selections you have created for your types of batteries you charge. And by selecting new, you can create a new preset model. Up to 30 preset models can be stored. Continuous work either enables or disables the continuous charging or discharging of the battery after the battery has been replaced. And you can either set to trickle charge or to end the charge when charging is completed. You can set the balance start voltage to balance the cells prior to commencing the full current charge to always -500, -400, -300, 200, and -100 millivolts. And set all of the settings back to factory defaults. Check the ID and the software version. So there you have it, guys, the M7AC from ToolKitRC. So if you want to check it out for yourself, the product link is down in the video description. So thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you again next time.